It was about a year ago today I sat in this exact seat in this exact room talking about exactly what I'm about to talk about now. This is the second version I've done on my YouTube channel of a year in review. This time I'm reviewing 2017 as it is 2017. I did this last year after my semi-great year last year I felt. But I wanted to touch on some topics that I may not have touched on over the year, or some people may not know yet. So I want to dive straight into it. Now, I'm going to go back to 2016 here for a little bit. 2016, I'm going to jump back to around Champs last year. I believe I've discussed this in a video before, but I want to touch on my roster going into IW. Now, for those of you guys that don't remember, my team at Champs last year was myself, Excite, Gydra, and Killerpie. After the event, pretty much Excite had mentioned that he'd like to depart from the team. I was pretty happy with how we were as a team, and I wanted us to stick. I made that pretty clear to Excite, and he spent the past month or two deciding whether or not he wanted to join Chiefs or not, which was the team that he ended up joining. So our team was in a little bit of limbo going into the start of the game. During that time, the IW beta was on. Now, for those of you guys that know me and have followed me throughout my career, you know that I'm a big fan of Call of Duty. Most Call of Duty titles I enjoy and love. IW, the beta was it was the beginning when I already knew I didn't enjoy the game. Pretty much every beta that has existed, IW was really the only second one, but any release of any Call of Duty game, whether it be a demo, a beta, or the full game, I grind the hell out of it. IW was an exception to this. I got on the game, and within the first 4 to 5 hours, I was bored of the game and I went to bed. That's never happened before. That was the first sign that I wasn't really into the game. It was still playable, though. I still enjoyed it somewhat. So, obviously, I just was like, it's a beta, who cares? After the beta, I didn't... I moved on to what was going to be the roster change for our team. Excite had mentioned before that he wanted to leave, and he had decided that he was going to leave. So this left us in a looking for one situation. Going into the launch of the game, myself and Killerpie especially discussed about what we wanted to do. We were pretty open to the idea of keeping Gydra, and we wanted to pick up Dean, who was actually in Chiefs. So technically, Cody was going to leave, and then I wanted to take Dean from that team. And we ended up, throwing it out to Dean. He wasn't overly keen at the time. So we looked at our other options. Buckabeck was another one. Now, we had teamed with this roster before. Myself, Buckabeck, Killerpie, and Gydra. There was a team of in Ghosts 2014. And we didn't really do too well, but I felt like we could have done better back in Ghost than we did. Especially because that was my first year internationally. I was pretty bad at the one event that we did go to. Pretty nervous and shit, so I didn't feel like I played to the way that I could have, which hence our team in Ghost didn't play to the way that we could have. But anyway, we ended up picking up Buckabeck. He was really... He wasn't the only option, but he was definitely the best option. For me, I still had my eyes set on Dean somewhat, and this is where we were I still wanted to team with Dean no matter what. So the option of LPL came along. It's the New Zealand event. It was back in December, and Buckabeck had already signed up with his previous team, which was Orbit, from the Cedar Bowl last year. So we needed one player to replace Buckabeck, so we got Dean. I did this in hopes of us performing really well, and then Dean maybe going okay, this could be a potential good team. And it was a good test for us to see as well whether or not it was a good team or not. The LPL went through. We ended the casual season in second place. We went to the finals and we played against Buckabeck's team where we lost. That was easily one of the worst performances. I think I only did one I only did well one map out of the three, or out of the four. No, out of the four. And we pretty much just got smashed. So it was sort of that was sort of like the write-off for that roster situation. I was still pretty good friends with Dean after that, so we continued talking. And Buckerbeck had come back to us after the LPL, and we just continued playing. We were doing pretty okay online. We won like a 2K, maybe no, only one 2K. And we had a few decent performances outside of that, but got to the point where we felt like our team could still do way better than we were. So we had opted to remove Gydra from the team and pick up Beaston. Back in 2016, I teamed with Beaston for the CWL. Don't get me wrong, Beaston is a great player. He is absolutely a beast. But I had a lot of issues with terms of commitment and stuff like that I value a lot. So I was very hesitant in the change. We ended up making it anyway, and we didn't feel like much. The commitment was definitely better than it was the year prior, but performance-wise, the team didn't really change much. If anything, it got a little bit worse, and that had nothing to do with like individual performances. It was just the fact that Beaston and our team didn't mesh well. We knew that, so we were like, fuck, okay, well, we're better off with Guy, so we might as well get Guy back. And we were kind of just content with where we were. At the time, I was still very good friends, or pretty good friends with Dean. And after Chiefs got back from an event overseas, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Atlanta. I got the offer pretty much to join Chiefs for Hopi, and that was like, to me, that was like, okay, I don't have to be content with this roster anymore. I can finally break out into like a good roster. Cody obviously wasn't in the team anymore. It was Fate, Lakey, and Dean. When I joined, there was talks of further roster changes of replacing Lakey for someone, but I wasn't 100% sure if it was necessary. The other people on the team weren't 100% sure if it was necessary, so we didn't end up making the change. We ended up playing. I was only in the team for like 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks, we had like 1 week of practice before a LAN event, which was Sydney 1. And the week before Sydney 1, we played a 2K, and we won the 2K. It was pretty close. We ended up beating Tainter Mines in the finals, and we only did that because like in the S&D, I dropped like 18 kills, which I probably will never ever do again in my life. So really, Tainter Mines should have won that 2K. But the fact that we won showed me potential in the team. Our scrims weren't too good, so yeah, I was at least glad that there was some light in this team. Going into Sydney 1, I thought that we definitely had a good shot at top 3, if not top 2, or potentially even winning the event. It started off pretty alright for us. I believe we clean sweeped our pool. There wasn't much competition in there. Our first hard match was, I believe, was against Hopi's new team, which was him, Scrism, and then my two former teammates, Gydra and Killerpie. That was a pretty big grudge match. We ended up taking that out. The next was MF, where we lost them pretty badly. So it was like losing that badly to MF when I thought that we had the potential to take out the event really threw me back a little bit. And I think it threw back the whole entire team. We weren't really performing that event to the way that we did in the 2K. I'm not going to say that it was online based. I think it was more so really literally an on the day thing, because the day prior, even in scrims, we were doing very, very well. I think it was more of maybe a pressure of official matches. I don't know. But we ended up losing to Buckerbeck's team and ended up placing 4th in the event, which was a pretty disappointing loss considering we expected T3 at minimum. So afterwards we had decided to make it wasn't really a decision that we made as a team. It was sort of just like, Chiefs as an organization wanted to move in a different direction, and that included Dean in it and potentially another one of us, but it didn't work out that way. So we ended up splitting off. And after that, SYF formed. I had to rebuild another roster. I'm like, okay, I just had something good, and I want to try and make something better, really. So I looked at the available players. Fate and I were free agents, so I wanted to team with him again. Um, I enjoyed playing with him in Chiefs, and I felt like him and I worked really well on IW. Billy Chillian was another one that he played really, really well at Sydney 1, and I was like, okay, Chillian is back in like normal form again. So I wanted to pick him up again, and then Buckabek's team, who ended up beating us and going on to place third, they were kind of like splitting up. So we're like, okay, we'll pick up Buckabek, and that was the SYF lineup. We performed decent, but it once again wasn't anything that we knew that we should be performing at. We attended a CGPL event, and that was really treated as a holiday for us. We still did try in our matches, but we didn't really prep going up to them. We ended up placing third, still taking Chiefs to the last map, who ended up winning the event. So we showed some promise on LAN, probably better than online for that team in particular, at least. But after that event, things weren't really the same. We were kind of playing less in general. We were doing a lot worse in scrims. We weren't really trying in scrims. And I think for Fate in particular, he really wanted to... I don't know. The motivation wasn't there for Fate in the team, which I don't blame him. And this led to talks of removing Fate, and I had to sit down with him and was like, okay, we want to be playing this amount of time. Are you able to do that? He's like, I don't know. I really just don't have the motivation to do that. I'm like, that's alright. If you want to leave, I don't mind. And he made the decision to leave. So this left us looking for another player. The only option that was like really viable and was a good option was Killapie. We ended up picking up Killapie, and this was a week before Sydney too. So we, once again, both Sydney events, I didn't have much preparation going into, but we ended up picking up Killapie, and I can't really remember what the scrims were like leading up to it, but we ended up, I believe, we ended up winning our pool. That's right. We had Fate's team in our pool, and they were a pretty good team. We ended up beating them on the Sunday. Oh, the Saturday. I remember this event clear as day now. We ended up beating them on the Saturday in pool play. Our first game was against Tyson's team, and they almost beat us, which was highly unexpected. We thought that we were going to clean sweep them and then like not have to deal with Saturday, but it was a very close game on Saturday night. Went down to the wire, 3-2 map count. Sunday morning we versed MF, which was two lands in a row. Got to verse them in second round. Ended up losing to them. This match was like really important for me. I felt like that series against MF, I learned a lot than I have from MF in the history of me playing them, especially at LAN. Going on further through the event, we ended up versing Hopi's team next, which made a loser bracket run, and they were dominating everyone. And it got to our game against them, and they just like, I think we got like one map against them, but the rest was just like, they blew us out. So we ended up losing to both grand finalists because they went on to verse MF in the finals, and we placed like top 6. I feel like that roster in particular, not to go on about pool play the day earlier, but we beat Fate's team and they placed third, so I kind of felt like, in my mind, if we played the same way and Fate's team played the same way, not saying that either of us did, but we could have been at that top 3 level. But top 6 anyway, pretty disappointing. Then after Sydney 2 led to more roster changes because we weren't really getting the results that we wanted to, and champs qualifiers were coming up, which was probably the most important event out of any of the ones that we had played throughout the year. And we decided to look at all of our options, and out of all of us, Chilean ended up getting an option to go join Renee's team with Rival and JTEX. So he had decided to go do that. So we picked up, us three decided to come back together, me, Killer Pie, and Buckerbeck, and we ended up picking up Tyson. Now, after Sydney 2, Tyson played really, really well. Online, Tyson was playing really, really well. I felt like under the guidance of us three, we could form him into a really, really good player. So we decided to pick him up, and this was probably the first team throughout the year that I felt like every time we scrimmed, we actually learned something and progressed. Even leading up to the COD Champs qualifiers, like every single night we got on, we learned something new. We all become better individually. We all became better as a team. So going into Champs qualifiers, we knew we weren't 100% ready as a team to make Champs convincingly. We knew that if anything, it would be close. The first day of the Champs qualifiers was pretty slow for us. We got knocked down to the loser bracket by Fate's team, and they beat us pretty badly. The only map we took was the S&D, but yeah, they stomped us on the first day. Second day came along, and this was probably the best that I had played for a while in Call of Duty, and I just had a monster of a day. Our first match was against I can't even remember. It was against some team. It was like semi-decent team. We ended up beating them 3-1. I think it was like Potato Wi-Fi's team or Snoop to Fire, I don't know. Going on to that, we had to verse Chilean's team, and this was a team I wasn't 100% sure where they stood and how we stood next to them, because our last night of scrims online, they were stomping us. So yeah, wasn't too sure about that, but we ended up beating them 3-1. Going on to our next match, we had a rematch against Fate's team, and obviously we had lost to them the day prior pretty convincingly. Second day wasn't so much like that. We still ended up losing to them, so a loss is a loss, but we lost the first map by like 7 points. We fucked up a rotation. I still remember it clear as day. We fucked up a rotation, pretty much kill horde when we weren't even supposed to, and it ended up losing us the game. Our S&D, we beat them. We went undefeated in S&D the whole entire event. We were a fucking godlike S&D team. The uplink, we got smashed, and then the last hard point was like the only bad map I had out of the day, and it sucks that it had to be our like do or die match. But we lost that by 50 points. We were making like this massive comeback, but we ended up losing. So technically, we lost the whole series by 57 seconds. And that was pretty much, that was the end of IW. I was very glad. I was very happy. The more I played the game, the more I grew to hate it. Even though I felt like over time I was getting better at it, I still fucking hated it more. So I remember losing, and I usually get pretty pissed off when I lose. Not something I might not necessarily show, but like I usually do get pissed off. COD Champs qualifiers was probably the exception. I was more happy that I never had to play the game again over the fact that we lost and didn't get a free trip to Florida. So, and that's the end of the year, pretty much. Just been chilling, playing Ghost, playing the beta. Not sure what comes next. As it currently stands, we're still a team from our COD Champs qualifiers, and I've enjoyed the beta, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the full game. So anyway guys, thanks for watching. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time, peace.